have you on board, and it would be great if you can type your name and the country from which you're representing, and also your designation in the chat, so that we get to know who is in the house today. My name is Victoria Kisache Kanobe. I work for UNESCO IICBA as a senior program specialist, but I also support on aspects of peace building. In the house, we have quite a lot of distinguished delegates. We have Her Excellency Takako Ito, the Ambassador of Japan to Ethiopia, whom you will be hearing from shortly. We also have Dr. Quinton Worden, the Director of UNESCO IICBA. We also have our esteemed panelists. We have Dr. Theodros Schwarget, Chief Executive Officer for Curriculum, for the Curriculum Directorate within the Ministry of Education from Ethiopia. We have Dr. Tendai Marova, who is the professor at the Midland State University in Zimbabwe. We have Dr. Mary Mugwe, who is the Deputy Director and Senior Lecturer at Mount Kenya University. And we also have Mr. Pietro Uzochukwu Macleo, a Rotarian from the Rotary Club of Abuja from Nigeria. It's going to be exciting to listen in from these panelists. I would also want to let you know, participants, that we have interpretation for those that can Francophone. We have interpretation from English to French, which is available, and vice versa. Just click on the globe icon below and choose the language of your preference. As the presenters will be going about with their presentation, I know that some comments, some questions may arise, but feel free to use the chat room for you to be able to present your questions. And in case we are within the plenary session and you want to raise your question, you can raise your hand during the Q&A session, and then you'll be able to unmute you so that you can share your views and perspectives. Otherwise, feel free to use the chat room, which will be moderated by my colleagues, Asumi Moritani and Dr. Jerusalem Asmerao. They'll be looking at the chat room to get your views. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today, and you're very, very welcome. Without further ado, allow me to give the floor to Dr. Quinton Worden, the Director for UNESCO IICBA, to give his welcome remarks. Over to you, Dr. Worden.
Thank you so much, Victoria, and welcome everybody. Most of you know IICBA, the International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa. We are one of the Category 1 UNESCO institutes. We focus on issues related to teachers and education in Africa. And I'm new to IICBA. I just joined about 2 months ago. And one of the first things I saw was this independent evaluation for the peace project that we are going to talk about today. This is a peace project that has been going on for a few years. And when I saw the independent evaluation, I was really curious because it was extremely favorable. And it's rare to have that. So I asked the team, Victoria, Jerusalem, Kasumi, to organize a webinar so that we could share some of the results, but more importantly, some of the impression and experiences of participants in the projects from different countries. And Victoria mentioned some of our panelists. I do want to mention very briefly that we have one co-sponsor for this event, which is the Rotary Action Group on Refugees, Forced Displacement and Migration. And of course, we are extremely grateful for the government of Japan that funded the peace project for several years. Now, you might ask, why focusing on education for peace? You probably know, many of you, the situation of education systems in Africa, which is a situation in crisis in many ways. The estimates by the World Bank, UNESCO, and others suggest that 9 in 10 children who are 10 years old are not able today to read and understand a simple text. This is really a learning crisis, and the COVID pandemic has probably made things even worse, even though we don't have yet fully the data to show the damage done when schools were closed. But we need to focus on learning poverty, on foundational skills like literacy and numeracy, But we also need to focus on what happens in schools, the schools climate. When I was at the World Bank, I did a study on violence in schools. It is extremely widespread in Africa and elsewhere, and it has a major negative effect on learning and schooling. So I think that considering topics such as education for peace is essential, not only for the children learning in the classroom today, but also for the future of sustainable societies. And I'm very happy that we have so many lessons learned from the project implemented over the last few years by UNESCO IICBA with a range of partners, UNESCO commissions in the countries, as well as the ministries of education, several NGOs. I want to mention Arigato, especially, they were a close partner. So I hope, without speaking too long, that you will find this webinar very instructive. And we do remain at your disposal for any questions you have about the project. The next big item for the team is actually to try to draw the lessons learned so that we can share them very widely. So let me stop here. Thank again Her Excellency Tatako Ito, the Ambassador of Japan to Ethiopia, and the government of Japan for the support for the project. And Victoria, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Warren Quinton. We really appreciate those welcome remarks. And yes, I can't re-emphasize the points that you have raised, but in the interest of time, allow me, colleagues, to give the floor to Her Excellency Ambassador Takako Ito, the Ambassador of Japan to Ethiopia. It's an honor to have you, ma'am, in the house. Over to you.
Thank you, Victoria. Dr. Quentin Warden, Director of UNESCO IICBA, Dr. Tewodros Shuaget, CEO of Curriculum Director, Minister of Education, Ethiopia, Dr. Tendai Marova, Professor, Midlands State University, Zimbabwe, Dr. Mary Magwe, Deputy Director and Senior Lecturer in Educational Management, Mount Kenya University, Mr. Pietro Uzochukwu Magleo, Rotarian from the Rotary Club of Abuja, Boost 2, a journey to promote peace at the grassroots in Nigeria, distinguished guests and friends of peace. On behalf of the government of Japan, I'm delighted to participate in this opening ceremony for the webinar series entitled Education for Peacebuilding and Prevention of Violent Extremism, Current Practice and Future Prospects, organized by the UNESCO International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa, or UNESCO IICBA. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all the ministries of education and educational institutions in the project countries, as well as our other participants and partners in Africa who joined hands for the success of this project. As a preamble to the Constitution of UNESCO declares, it is the minds of men and women that defense of peace must be constructed. Since 2017, the government of Japan has been supporting UNESCO IICBA's efforts to build peace and resilience through teacher policy development with an understanding that education is a powerful tool for transforming minds and societies. The aspiration towards building a peaceful, resilient, and sustainable society lies at the core of the approaches that the Japanese government takes in guiding its relations with African countries. Peace is a particularly important theme for Japan this year. For one reason, for this year and the next year, Japan is serving as a non-permanent member of the Security Council, which bears primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security. For another, Japan will host the G7 summit in May in Hiroshima, an international city of peace. The Hiroshima summit will be an opportunity to send a strong message for peace, aiming for a world without any nuclear weapons. Japan's development cooperation for peace and prosperity in the world has always been for non-military purposes. Based on the concept of human security, Japan places importance on protecting individuals and strengthening their capabilities to safeguard the life and dignity of individual human beings. When we talk about peace, we must consider individuals' health, personal growth, economic opportunities, social networks, and spiritual spaces, among others. This requires an integrated and innovative approach. It is in this view that the government of Japan has supported the work of UNESCO IICBA over the years. Education is a great starting point for transforming people's minds and attitude and stimulating the innovative actions needed for peace building. It is also important to note that education is one of the few preventive measures that can prepare populations for future incidents. We believe that this project has well contributed to strengthening the capacities of Africa's educational institutions, as well as individuals who are involved in the capacity development of others. Over the past 5 years, the number of African countries supported by the government of Japan through UNESCO IICBA has expanded to over 25. It is indeed encouraging and inspiring to see the growth of the circle of peace and resilience building across Africa. And it is my ardent wish that the project will truly contribute to ensuring peace in this continent. In closing, let me sincerely commend the continuous hard work of the UNESCO IICBA team under the excellent leadership of its director, Dr. Quentin Warden. I would like to express my hope that this webinar will serve as a platform for the sharing of good practices and for exchange of ideas. Once again, I thank you all for all the hard work you have done to make this event possible, and I look forward to a productive and inspiring discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for those wonderful remarks. We appreciate the appreciation to UNESCO IICBA and all the ministries that participated in the project, and also for setting the pace for this meeting as a commencement of several webinars that will be taking place in terms of sharing experiences around education for peace building and prevention of violent extremism in Africa. Now, colleagues, you're welcome. I know that many joined after I gave some remarks regarding the availability of the French interpretation. Just in case you need a French interpretation, you can click on the globe icon and then choose the language of your choice. And we'll be using the chat room for the question and answer session. Also, just in case any comment comes up, feel free to use the chat room to air your views and perspectives. Without further ado, kindly allow me to invite Dr. Jerusalem Azmeral from UNESCO IICBA to give her reflections for the peace building project. You need to know where we've come from and the results and impact to date. Over to you, Dr. Jerusalem.
Thank you very much. Jerusalem?
Hello? Okay. So good afternoon, colleagues, and it has been a while since we met in December, and it's our first webinar, and thank you for many of you for joining us today. And I can see that there are quite few new people who have joined us today to hear what has been worked well from this peace education program. So I will briefly go through what we have done and what were the successes that's mainly reflected from the evaluation report. So for many of you, I hope you know IICBA. It's a Category 1 institute with a mandate on working on teacher professional development. And this year we are also revising our strategic plan. So there might be few changes on our major components, but we focus on capacity development, partnership, advocacy, and research and development. And when we come to the peace education program, we have started our peace education program in 2017. Kasumi, the next slide, please. And when we started the program in 2017, it was through the support of the government of Japan. We are really grateful for the support, and it was focused on 6 countries, Then we expanded it in 2018-19 into 10 countries, especially on the Sahel and surrounding countries, and then come back to also to the Horn of Africa and the Sahel region in 2019, and 2021 expanded to the northern and the southern African countries. That's because of the concerns in these countries, as well as also the impact of COVID on that time. And to 2021-22, we also included new countries like Djibouti, Lesotho, Mozambique, and Namibia. All in all, we have reached 28 countries. Out of them, 25 of them engaged in that shared training program as a whole. So the overall objective of this project was to initiate evidence-based research. Next slide, Kasumi. And on the area of drivers of violence and conflict in Africa, and the role of education, mainly the role of teachers on preventing violence and creating safe and peaceful learning environment, and to develop evidence-based training materials on peace building, resilience, and preventing violent extremism, as well as to support countries to come up with a contextualized training materials, courses that will feed into the program, and also capacity building for educators and teachers on the area of peace building, and also providing resource materials and advocacy platforms, including the experience sharing webinars and dialogues that we have for the last 2-3 years. And later on through the process, we have been aware that the engagement of the young people is very important in the process. And that is a lesson that we have got from the first 2 initiatives of the project, and we have incorporated the component of the youth. So how we go about it, that's what the strategy has 2 components. The first one is at the national level. Next slide, Kasumi. On the national level, we focused on the Ministry of Member States, the Ministry of Education, and under Ministry of Education, the curriculum, the shared policy and development sections, the higher education, and the shared training institutions were a part of it. And we started the process of situational analysis, especially what looks like the conflict and drivers of conflict at the regional levels of the continent. And we had the inception meetings, consultative meetings, and then we develop action plans together with the countries and come up with a training guide material development, and then the regional training, and then that regional training goes down to the country level, trainings. And then we use the shared training institutions, the universities and colleges as an entry point, and they cascade the training to the pre-service and then service one. And when we come to the youth part, we engage especially the African Union Youth for Peace program, which is the core program the African Union has to reach to the 2063 agenda of the Africa we want. And we had a different consultation meetings with the young people all over the region or all over the continent. And then we have come up with a training materials development, capacity building. Okay, I think it's because of my mic. Can you hear me, Kasumi? Hello?
Yes, but many people saying, could you please
this is
increase
overall
the volume?
project, and what we have found from our 6 years of intervention. The next slide, Kasumi, is yes, and this is actually the report that we found from the evaluation, the independent evaluation, and it has indicated us that the countries have been benefited a lot on the training resource materials that we have developed in the process. And one of the reasons that makes it more important is it's because context responsive. It responds to the context of the countries they are in, and at the same time, it also have pedagogical approach that we call transformative pedagogy, but it was well taken by the colleges and the shared training institutions and the educators. And the other, what makes it more effective is also the translations of the language in the language that, at least at the regional language of English, French, Arabic, as well as to some countries to the local languages in Ethiopia, for example. And the other key success of the project is how the approach that we use. We had regional level training of trainers, which we have reached more than 500 people, and those people went directly to their countries and they trained educators and teachers asset TOTI again, which covers all over like 3,000 educators, and then these are the core people who, or the resource, the human resource that we use to indirectly reach the beneficiaries, especially the in-service and the pre-service teachers, depending on the structural arrangement of the countries. And the other component that I have discussed earlier was also the youth component, which we managed to create an approach of including the youth on the program and the youth dialogues, the youth promotional activities, and the trainings that we have provided, the online trainings and the TOTs that we have provided. The youth have reached as like 3,000 youth in the continent, and this is a mass number of the youth that have been trained in the program. And the other component that we focused is on the especially at the country level, what we have seen as a success is the contextualization of the training materials at the country level. Many of the countries has contextualized the training guide, and some countries even took more initiatives, like the National University of Somalia has a peace education module under the peace and under the civic education department at the university level, and there is also curriculum integration from Algeria, Ethiopia, and other countries. The peace education guidelines for the teacher training programs, the national action plans developed in Uganda, Libya, Tunisia can be some of the examples that were mentioned also by from the external evaluation, and using the local or the lower structures, the use and the peace clubs which were established at the school levels were one of the important key lessons that we have got from this program, and partnership and collaboration, especially the collaboration we have with the African Union, collaboration we have with different organizations like Arigato, different youth organizations, local organizations, Rotary clubs, as well as the universities, especially, and the teacher training colleges at the country levels are what we have seen from the evaluation report as a very good indicators for the sustainability, as well as for the ownership of the program at the country level. I have talked about the youth empowerment process. Kasumi, to the next slide. So the external evaluation all over have shown, sorry for, I think my voice is a bit far. That's because of the mic problem on my laptop. I hope I am audible enough. And the effectiveness of the program is what the external evaluation has indicated as a major success. The project components, the outputs are relevant and appropriate, and the report also indicated us that it realized the main goal or the overall objective of the project, and the internal structure, in relation to efficiency, the internal structure, like the value for money, the scope we covered, we covered many countries, as well as the value for money. Those who have been handling this program at the country level are those who can witness this, that we have used a small amount of budget at country level. And even in some countries, I can say with a minimal budget that they can cascade the program, and they own the program and mainstream the program on their existing training programs. And the sustainability through the partnership, especially the involvement of the government, the colleges, and the structure that we have created at the lower level, the peace clubs and the training of trainers are some of the indicators that has been revealed from the evaluation report. And some of our panelists, I hope, will brief us or tell us their experiences later on this regard. So all in all, the project, next slide, Kasumi. All in all, the project realizes, as the external evaluation concluded, we have met our project goal, and 96% of the respondents, 98% of the respondents say that the project goal has been achieved throughout the implementation process. And Kasumi, next slide. Yes, and what we have learned and what will be the next step as IICBA, and what will be the next step for countries is something that I would like to reflect. And from our project evaluation, we also find out that it's important to scale up the project. Of course, it also requires mobilizing funds, and it has also indicated some ways of mobilizing funds. And the first one is to policy advocacy and research, to expand more on the lessons learned, and to show cases for scale-up and sustainability. They focus more on refugee conflict area and use singled out as very important component because still there is a need on the refugee and the conflict affected areas. And as you know, some of the countries are still in conflict while all this thing is happening. So there is a need to focus more on the conflict areas, integrating peace in different subjects. It's what we have taken as a lesson learned and what we can work on as a next step, because peace building is more about communication, more about relationships. So we cannot say that it's only a standalone course or it can be integrated in one course. And this is what we have found out from the evaluation and also from our experience, that some countries have linked it to the life skill program, some linked it to the co-curricular activity, some to the civic history education and so on. So there is a need to integrate more on these components to the other subjects, and the high involvement of stakeholders, especially the civil society organizations in NGOs, which also somehow is a gap on the program, is the main thing that we need to focus. And as IICBA internally, we also wanted to disseminate this knowledge shared through interviews, knowledge notes, discussion papers, by synthesizing studies which would come out very soon, and also using external platforms like blogs, webinars, conference events, journal articles, and exploring other ideas is what we have planned to disseminate the lesson learned that we have. And of course, it will be through the joint collaboration with countries who have been involved in the program. And finally, I would like to thank all of you, the African Union, the ministry offices, expert trainings, the universities, Arigato International, Rotary clubs, and other NGOs, well, and of course the National Commission for UNESCO, who have been partnering with us, become bridge for us while we were implementing these programs. And finally, the government of Japan for its kind support and also consistency on the support of these 5 years. And I thank you all for attending this webinar also. Over to you, Victoria.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jerusalem. Asmeral, thank you for giving us the genesis about the project. We really apologize for the voice fluctuations, but I believe that you're able to get a lot of information that she has been able to share in a very, very short time. And colleagues, I'm also going to request that as we move into the next session, where it's going to be a panel session, to all our esteemed presenters, kindly speak slowly for the sake of the interpreters to be able to follow, and also relay the same information to our colleagues who are Francophone. And we have the next 30 minutes, which are quite interesting. And as I mentioned earlier on, we have 4 panelists. We have Dr. Tewodros Shoagat, who is the CEO for the Curriculum Directorate within the Ministry of Education of Ethiopia. And we also have Dr. Tendai Marova. We also have Dr. Mary Mugwe. We have Mr. Pietro Uzochukwu Mascleo from the Rotary Club of Abuja. I'll be asking some interesting questions, and then I'll be guiding you in terms of your response. I can see a lot of comments are coming through the chat room. Please keep them coming. We'll be addressing them shortly. And so, I don't know if Dr. Tewodros, you can be able to hear me. Maybe you can do a thumbs up so that I can be wonderful, wonderful. Nice to know that you're online and you can hear me very well. So to each of our panelists, you have 3 minutes to respond to the kind of question I'm going to ask. Within the context, I will be asking the question. So when I commence with you, Dr. Tewodros, I know that you are an expert on curriculum issues and want to hear more about your experiences regarding integration of peace education in the curriculum. What was your intervention about? Can you please share with us in about 3 minutes? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for all of you. I have a PowerPoint, but I don't know how to present that presentation.
Our colleague will be handling it.
Okay, thank you very much.
But summarize, thank you very much.
Yeah, the next slide. Well, we are in the process of reforming the whole education system. One of the education system is curriculum reform. Already this roadmap study already conducted from 2015, and now we are in the process of reforming all the components of the education sector, including the policy. One of the reform is curriculum reform. Next slide. Well, these are the reform agendas: education policy, education acts, 10-year plan, curriculum reform. These are most of the parts. The curriculum reform. The next slide, the curriculum reform. Already we do have critical problems in the education system. The main problem is education quality. Now we are reforming this program. One of the critical problems is lack of provision of moral education. This is a critical problem for in our country. So we are doing that program. So the next slide. These are the new focus areas of our curriculum. I already mentioned in moral education is the basic focus areas. Next slide. The moral education and the general education areas, the new areas is number 6 and number 9. Moral education and citizenship education is the new learning areas, and career and technical education is the new areas or based on the study, the roadmap study. These are the subjects of the Ethiopian education system, the new subjects. From this, you can see from grade 1 to 6, we included the new education, the moral education, and from middle school, citizenship education is included. Next slide. In secondary education, also we do have the citizenship education. The moral education you can, or for peace education, the moral values is critical. These moral values, we build the peace education. So these are the main contents of the moral education from grade 1 to 6. We incorporate peace education in grade 4 and grade 6, especially the contents. All other components related to the moral education. You can observe that without moral values, we can build peace. So this is a moral education content. The next slide. The citizen education also, the citizen education in we after grade 6, we provide for students citizenship education from grade 7 onwards. In this citizen education, we one of the contents is conflict resolution and peace building is the main contents in grade 6. You can see that citizenship, state government, and democracy, rule of law. This is basic for peace education. So, especially we provide peace education, peace building, and conflict resolution in grade 6.
One minute, Dr. Theodorus.
Okay, I'm finalizing. In co-curriculum activity, also we do have parliament clubs, peace education clubs, human rights clubs. Next slide. Well, the future plan for the future, we develop supplementary material to support teaching and learning moral education and citizenship education. I think my time is already, the slide is final. But we do have the plan of strengthening the moral and citizenship education and translation of local peace building materials already developed by UNESCO, and we'll continue doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for walking us through quickly how the components of peace education have been integrated across the different grades, the curriculum, and even showing us the elements or the entry points within the curriculum. This is quite interesting. I'm sure colleagues will have more questions about this. And quickly, I want to move to Zimbabwe. we want to hear from Dr. Tendai Marova, who is a professor at Midland State University in Zimbabwe. I know that you are talking about transformative pedagogy and the indigenous knowledge approach that you're using for peace building and prevention of violent extremism. Kindly share with us what your intervention was all about, again in 3 minutes, because we have another round of questions. Over to you, to Dr. Tendai Marova.
Oh, thank you very much. And my apologies for not having my camera on. And I want to greet you all in the name of peace for the meeting here with us here. It's about peace. I will respond to the critical questions which you posed here. What was our intervention all about? That is the first one. The intervention connected to transformative pedagogy and indigenous knowledge approaches for peace building and the prevention of violent extremism is coming in the context where there is prevalence of violence across Africa, and where we observed that young people are at the center of the matrix of these violent acts and also occurrences. We all sustainable development goals, of which our target was goal number 4, and in particular target number 7, even though we were also seeing the connection between education and all the other goals, sustainable development goals. So in this particular context, we decided to use approaches or what strategies which were up in the context of COVID-19 and also post-COVID. Online meetings and workshops could not be avoided. And in the process of doing this, we decided to take an interdisciplinary approach where examples from various disciplines across our curriculum were actually used so as to make sure that no one is left behind in the process of engaging with participatory pedagogy, with transformative pedagogy. We also, in the training process, we used mixed training and teaching instruction so that the whole exercise, even though it will be an online exercise, will be participatory and involve everyone. And how this worked in practice, maybe I could just go over what we did. We started off with a training of trainers, which was run by IICBA. This was undertaken in 2020, I'm sure it was in December. And it involved 8 trainers who were trained by IICBA at that moment in time. Those 8 participants were then given the task to, cascade the training to other institutions, which they focused first of all on teacher educators for very obvious reasons that teacher education is a multiplier effect. This was undertaken in June 2021. And then in September 2022, we involved institutions of higher education, particularly targeting young leaders within this institution. A total number of about 21 institutions were actually engaged in this particular workshop, and each institution sent an average of 4 participants from each institution. Yes, what were the challenges and innovative approaches used? The innovation that we think we used in this particular instance was to use a multidisciplinary approach using the team of trainers who were trained effectively and rigorously. And then we also adopted the indigenous knowledge approach, which provided with context-specific practical guides to the practice of teaching and learning within the various spheres of education.
You have 1 minute to summarize, Dr. Tendai.
All right. And on the online exercises we undertook, the challenge we had was that one of technological gaps. Most of the institutions, some of the institutions did not have enough, equipment to facilitate this. And lastly, the prospects of this particular project lies on its ability to go a step further and design as well as produce OER, that is open educational resources for practical use in various spheres of educational operation. And again, there is need to evaluate country practice as a follow-up to the training which was undertaken by the trainers. I think with this, I come to the end of my presentation and would like to thank you all for listening attentively. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tendai Marova, for walking us through what was done at the teacher education level, right from the TOT all the way to the training of young leaders in 21 teacher training institutions. I see so many comments coming through. Please keep them coming. We'll have a time to address them. And I'll quickly move to Dr. Mary Mugwe, the Deputy Director and Senior Lecturer at Mount Kenya University. You have 3 minutes. Please keep the time and tell us what your intervention was all about, and the challenges you faced and how you went through. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope I can be heard. Yes, my name is Mary Mugwe.
Yes.
And we are looking at the nurturing young peace champions. We want to look at the successes, challenges, and their future prospects. And maybe I start with what you have just asked about the interventions. Maybe I made it to say why we started this. And it is good to understand that Kenya, just like any other country, has had its rampant conflicts and insecurities, and this did not leave the education institutions and the community away. Around 2007, 2008, the country witnessed widespread ethnically instigated post-election violence after disputed presidential election results. I think this is almost the time that we were just about to start this training. Then this actually violence resulted to over 1,000 lives and were lost, over 350,000 persons being internally displaced, what we call the IDPs. And then there was immense destruction of both the public and private properties, including offices, health centers, and the schools. Around 2008, 2012 to 2016, there was also increased burning of schools. There were unrest assaults, and actually there was one term, which is 3 months, 320 schools went on strike. And actually we also lost a number of our students then. And the concern now was about, now that I have taken my child to school, am I likely to get my child back in a coffin? Then there was also the Al-Shabaab terrorist attacks. We had the Westgate, that's here in Nairobi, around 2013. We had 7 deaths and 175 injured. Worst being 2015, Garissa University College, where we lost 148 lives. There was also another hotel that was attacked around 2019, and we lost 28 lives. There was also increase of muggings, and this has been there, targeting especially the university students. There have also been groupings. I can just cite one, maybe 2. They call themselves Wakali Kwanza. Wakali is a Kiswahili, Wakali is a Kiswahili word for, the fierce. So they are the fierce, and the word Kwanza is number 1. So you can imagine what that one means. And there are those groupings that were coming up, and the people who are involved were quite young. Then again, we have the Kenyan Vision 2030, which is a blueprint for socio-economic and political development, and it underscores the need for to inculcate a culture of peace and respect. For the sanctify of human life through social institutions and actually through education. And this was one of the things that informed us that we can actually have this program through education, and actually we're targeting the tertiary institutions as well as secondary school. Of course, UNESCO, we cannot forget that since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the mind of men that the defenses of Then we had our objectives that were also very informative on what we were doing. We really wanted to train and build, having what I have just laid down the background. We wanted to train and build capacities of university staff and the School of Education and student teachers in peace building at the universities in Kenya. Then again, we wanted to enhance the peace building initiatives in the university through peace awareness activities, which to some extent I can say that we were actually able to do. Then the other one, we also wanted to promote the practice of transformative pedagogy for peace building. And actually this we were able also to implement, as I'll be saying, the monitoring of what those programs were doing, because we were also worried about their sustainability, and we were able to do that. When did we do this? We had a longitudinal approach, stretching between 2017, as I have said, that is the time we had issues with political insecurities, to 2022. And what did we do? One of the things is that in Kenya, this initiative has been implemented by the Ministry of Education. You had Dr. Yerusalem talk about partnership, and it was also conducted by Kenya National Commission for UNESCO in partnership with Kenyatta University and Mount Kenya University. Why Kenyatta University? It has a long history for training teachers. It's a public university. Mount Kenya University is one of the largest private university in East and Central Africa, and having actually the School of Education being the largest.
Dr. Mary, you have 1 minute
Yes,
to conclude.
Thank you so much. That's okay. It will be enough. And we are saying that through the trainings, we had the TOTs trained, in 2017, and then we attended the conferences in Japan and Ethiopia. We were also able to train the students from Kenyatta University and Mount Kenya University, around 100 students. And all those students that we did this were those who are going for practicum. They were the ones who, so that because we believed once they go for practicum, they'll be able to go and cascade what we had trained them in those schools. We have actually been able also to mentor some students in various places, and these students have also been in a place to go to the schools. They have gone to the schools and also to the youths. And up to the date, we can talk about that we have been able to train so many, because between 2019 and 2022, we trained over 1,000, around 500 participants. So we can say that this has been quite a success, and not forgetting that even the experiences that we had, we were actually shared it in one of the conferences that we had. For now, maybe I can stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can see the passion and the desire to tell us more, but we really appreciate. Thank you so much, Dr. Mary Mugwe. Let me quickly move to Abuja in Nigeria. We want to hear from Mr. Pietro Uzochukwu Macleo, who is the Rotarian. We worked with the Rotary Club of Abuja, and may you let us know about the journey to promoting peace at the grassroots in Nigeria and experience from the Rotarians. We look forward to hearing from you. You have 3 minutes, please. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Please permit me to leave my camera off. I'm in a zone where my network is not really that stable. Okay, so I'll be talking on the journey to promote peace at the grassroots level. Ours was implemented almost a year now. Tomorrow will make it exactly a year. We had an online intervention where the training of trainers of over 500 were engaged in the transformative pedagogy of positive peace. Our project was a partnership with Rotary Intercountry Committee of Great Britain, Ireland, and Nigeria, UNESCO IICBA, and the Institute for Economics and Peace. And at the end of the 2 weeks intensive training, we engaged the trainees that have been put through this gruesome task. First, on a self-assessment examination to ascertain their level of comprehension of the whole exercise. Quickly, I would like to say a big thank you to the UNESCO IICBA team and the IEP team. It was a very engaging session, and our trainers were able to understand the concepts of transformative pedagogy and also the concept of positive peace. And this informed the piloting of interventions that they replicated across Nigeria. Please, next slide. Now, going forward, you would see that they showed great prowess in understanding what it took or what it entails to utilize or practicalize transformative pedagogy. These are interventions that were implemented in various parts of Nigeria. And what makes these interventions really unique or important is that the whole project was inspired or was motivated by the need to nip violent conflicts in the bud amongst youths, in the community, in schools. So there was lots of intervention implementation in 4 walls of academic institution, talking about primary schools, secondary schools, tertiary institutions, and even correctional facilities. Please, you could scroll further. These are interventions in Delta State, in Abuja, in Benue State, in Borno, over 20 states in Nigeria. These trainees were able to replicate what they've learned, engaging young Nigerians on the need to advance peace within their school environment and outside their school environment, talking about the communities where they reside. So it was really interesting to see that they could understand and immediately utilize this new knowledge of theirs. And I would like to say that we've gone ahead to integrate them in our peace process nationwide. They are our field agents, and we've coordinated them to implement other interventions over the period of their capacity enhancement. And coming to other aspects of our training, it was also interesting to see the nexus between positive peace and transformative pedagogy, where participants were sort of shown how to target any of the 8 pillars of positive peace and design interventions to reinforce them. Now, positive peace is a unique ideology of the Institute for Economics and Peace Australia that helps you identify the deliverables of a certain pillar of peace in a society, that when you target it and engineer programs to reinforce it, you could actually arrive at tangible results, which really encourages you to see your efforts and measures your effort. And these were the new knowledges that our trainees were able to imbibe. And when you combine this with the transformative pedagogy approach, it was really interesting, because instantly they started identifying challenges in their communities. They started designing the projects that you just saw were implemented and designed by them on the spot within those 2 weeks program. They could easily say that this was prevalent in their society, and we walked them through on how to engineer interventions to address those things. You saw interventions in schools about bullying. You saw interventions. What you're looking at now is an intervention in correctional center, and that is the Nigerian Prison Correctional Service. So imagine that a pedagogy could be used of a positive peace in a correctional facility was really interesting. There's also an intervention where you would see children being taught the art of peace building with karate. Those were very, very unique concepts that speaks directly to the realities of their communities, and using what they have around them to engineer sustainable peace was pretty interesting. And the need to advance this thought forward and proliferate peace clubs and have a more sustained approach to peace building at the grassroots level has inspired us from this piloted intervention. And the Nigerian government is pretty interested in what we're doing, and is pretty interested in engaging these trainers going forward, saying what they've been able to do on their own with very limited resources and training. And then the intention is to cascade and replicate this kind of peace clubs nationwide and have a routine training. That way, actions and of the peace builder could be more measurable, and we could see more dividend in the children and teenagers that are involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pietro Uzochukwu, for those wonderful insights that you've given us. We can see the involvement of peace education reaching out to even the correction services. It's quite interesting to see. I'm going to combine 2 aspects, and which will contribute to one last round of the questions that I'm going to ask. To all our panelists, I'm going to request you to just present to us some of the challenges that you've encountered, the lessons learned, and probably your future prospects in terms of carrying this forward. It would be nice to hear from you based on the interventions that you've already shared. And then after that, we will go into a question and answer session. Let us maintain the 3 minutes for the sake of making sure that we run through and we are not caught up with time. So I'll begin again with Dr. Tewodros Shoaget. Please, would like to hear more about this curriculum integration process. What have been some of the key challenges and lessons learned? Plus, what plans do we have to take this forward? Over to you, Dr. Tewodros.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, when we integrated the curriculum, moral education, peace education in the new curriculum, there are so many challenges because moral education is a new subject. There is no skill manpower in moral education. Even we face difficulty in choose who can develop the LMs, that is teaching and learning material. We do have only civic teachers. The civic and the ethical education teachers is all focusing on civics, ethical education. But the moral education is very different. But when we there is a debate between how we can integrate peace education and moral education. For peace education is a moral values critical to develop peace education. That is when we develop syllabus for moral education, including citizenship education, a lot of debate. I show that some of the some participants raise the issue of why peace education stand alone. We debate a lot of, because how can we develop peace without moral education, without respecting our common values? So the common values, where we respect common values, the ultimate, the end product or the outcome is building peace. So this was the challenge, and the other challenge is how to train teachers. There is no teachers, and we select some related subject areas to train those teachers who can teach moral education and citizen education. These are the main challenges. For the future, we do have three components. The first one is to introduce moral and citizen education training of teachers or teachers, and developing a curriculum framework for college. We have to develop a system which is related to the actual school curriculum. We are producing college syllabus, teacher education college syllabus. The second issue is how to scale up peace education materials and how to translate. And we translate in 3 local areas, the language. And you know that Ethiopia is a multi-language country, and we have to translate in different language. So we plan to translate with the mission of IICBA and train and scale up this peace building materials. And the third one is we develop peace education not only in the classroom. We have to have such kind of curriculum activity and educating on aware the parents in this peace education materials. So in the future, we will strengthen the peace education club in schools and scaling up training, not only teachers, even parents. We will design, we plan to train head teachers, parents, and as a cluster supervisor to scale up with such kind of peacebuilding, the very important materials. This is all our plan in the future.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Someone just made a very interesting comment of taking on a holistic approach, which is quite interesting. And it's one thing to have the peace education components infused in the curriculum, but do we have the teachers to teach those elements? And then also thinking through the parents and the community. That's quite interesting. So I believe colleagues are taking note, and we appreciate that guidance and also your experiences. Now, let me move to Zimbabwe. Dr. Tendai Marova from the Midlands State University of Zimbabwe. What are some of the lessons and challenges that are coming up, but also your prospects of taking this forward through what you talked about in terms of transformative pedagogy and indigenous knowledge approach within the teacher education prospects? Over to you, Dr. Marova. You have 3 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you very much once again. I've already in my initial presentation, I've alluded to some of the challenges which we encountered, especially in the COVID-19 context, where online workshops, even though those which we managed to undertake were quite useful and beneficial, but there was also limitations regarding technological care. Amongst the higher education institutions we interacting, particularly teacher education institutions. Some of the institutions are situated in rural areas where connectivity issues to do with power are a problem.
Dr. Marova, we've lost you. Are you still with us? We missed some points.
Yeah, sorry, I was saying, in the spirit of not leaving anyone behind, I think those institutions which were left out could be engaged in a physical context, in face-to-face issues. Then I think the other important issue has to do with designing and producing open educational resources for practical use in various spheres of educational operation, or at least to train teacher of teachers again on how these can be developed, because these materials should speak to the specific context of individuals speaking in those particular areas. So it is very, very critical for us to move from the theoretical part of it to the practical part of it, of the operationalization of transformative pedagogy using the indigenous knowledge approach. Like I indicated as well, in order for this to be sustainable, there is need to make follow-up training depending on the needs with each group of people we're engaged with. For instance, we could evaluate how the practice now of transformative pedagogy is being undertaken by the teacher of teachers, that is the lecturers, and by teachers who have been trained by the lecturers themselves within the school system. This should lead to follow-up training in order to make sure that the transformative pedagogy becomes very practical. As we have already observed in our workshops, there is a close link between education for sustainable development, between transformative pedagogy, and also between global citizenship education. There is also need to make sure that these are clearly, synchronized so that the projects which are running as independent projects can actually be brought together, operationalized, and also making sure that each and every institution associated with teacher development benefits from this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tendai. It's quite interesting to know your experiences about the online mode of delivery, and given the challenges that some institutions were left out because of the infrastructure challenges. And so this requires some face-to-face interventions, and also you're talking about translating the theory to practice. Quite interesting indeed. Quickly, we have, our time is running so fast. Dr. Mary Mugwe, you talked about the nurturing of young peace champions, and you talked about the successes and challenges thereof, plus the future prospects. We would like to hear more. What are your lessons learned? And then what do you intend to take forward? Over to you in 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Victoria. Some of the lessons learned, just like maybe one of the persons who have said there, is that it is so important to have inclusiveness, where we are including everybody, lecturers, teachers, students, and the community. That one we have really seen working for us, because once you include all of them, then there's ownership. There's the ownership of the program. And as I said, because of for example, the peace clubs that we formed in the university, it's out of those peace clubs that we had the members, that this is the students who are also recruiting other members and training them. It is also them that, we mentored. We were able to mentor them, and they were able to go to the schools because they are almost of the same age, and also to the community where they have the youths, and they could quite well relate with them. I also really appreciated the whole thing about transformative pedagogy, which was actually a game changer for us. The fact that these students were already transformed, they were able to, to talk with conviction that actually it is possible to have peace. We were able to see that you train 10, then the 10 are able to train 100, and the 100 are able to train 1,000, and it can go on like that. Issue of partnership, that is also something, and that's why we are very, very happy that we were able to partner with the students, with the university itself, with the local community, and we cannot forget the UNESCO IICBA, as well as even the Ministry of Education here. Issue of cost effectiveness and volunteering, that is also something that we realize that it's also another lesson, that yes, you can be given some support for transport, but you have to be there, and it has to start with you. And once it starts with you, you'll find that you are willing more to go further, and there's the whole issue of sustainability. What were some of the challenges? The challenges were there. That yes, we were like, now you can see, yeah, Kenya is wide. These issues are here, they are here with us still, and we were just able to meet very few universities. We trained around 4 universities, and yet we still have so many other areas that we have not reached. Remember, I also said we went to 2 capitals. We went to cities. We were in Nairobi and Mombasa. But again, through we have a body here which we call the National Cohesion for Integration Commission, and it has some hotspots of where it is always very difficult, especially during the elections and even these other days. We have cities like Kisumu, we have towns like Nakuru and Eldoret, and we still need to go there. But again, what is the prospect of this? We are hoping that we can cascade this into other learning institutions. We can be able to reach the youths, because as I said in the beginning, when you look at who are these that are causing all this chaos, it's about the youths. And if you're able to reach more youths, whether it is in the university level, whether it is in secondary school level, whether it's these youths who are actually known of causing this chaos, then I think we can go for about the sustainability. As I finish, it is sustainable. The reason that we have been able to make them transformed and believing in what they are doing. So that's what I can say. Thank you so much, Victoria.
Thank you so much, Mary. Wonderful. Amazing to know that the cascade approach can bring in a multiplier effect, and there's more work that needs to be done. So quickly, let me move to Pietro. Mr. Pietro Uzochukwu, please let us know what is the journey forward based on the wonderful experiences you've shared. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I would like to call up my slide real quick. Okay, first let me start with the sustainability. The challenges we had centered around motivation and engagement of these peace practitioners, these trainees. These are professionals in their own right, whom we brought together to teach new approaches in peace building. And motivation was a thing of concern, and getting them interested and keeping them interested. So having they passed through that process, it was important we integrate them, like I mentioned earlier, in our peace network. And if you look at the lower cadre with the red circle, that is where they're rightly situated. This is the National Peace Network of Rotary in Nigeria. And this means that across the country, the 36 states and federal capital of Nigeria, these peace builders are being engaged and more, even being recruited. Next slide. And we've incentivized our process and made it pretty interesting. Amongst the graduates of the February program, over 80 of them have gone ahead to become IEP ambassadors. And still among this number, next slide, among this number, 3 of them just got the Rotary Peace Fellowship Scholarship. And these are ways we try to keep them encouraged and keep them motivated and interested in building peace. Because for us, it's beyond acquiring certificates. It's about practicing what you've learned. And we're letting them know that the more you get involved in the field, the more you sacrifice and garner experience in the field, you could be able to really qualify for some of these low-hanging fruits we as Rotarians consider as such, being that we fund individuals to learn these things and they don't even practice. So getting Nigerians that are willing to go to the field and replicate what they've learned, we're really excited, and we are motivating them and by showing them more things to do with their new knowledge. Now, next slide, please. Coming on to the prospects, next slide. We have really looked at how we can get government involved, and then look at how we can sustainably replicate the peace infrastructure across Nigeria. So let me say that Rotary Nigeria National Peace Building and Conflict Prevention Committee have established several peace infrastructures that are national peace network, and then even conflict violence reduction programs. We also utilize the whole of society peace building approach for our interventions. This simply means that we partner with governments, CSOs, CBOs, INGOs, and we've so far recorded tremendous successes, including being recently accredited as an election observer organization for the general elections in Nigeria. So
Wow.
what you're looking at your screen right now is one of those multilateral collaborative approach to peace building. We made a proposal to the federal government on the need to establish and operate peace infrastructures in schools nationwide, and was recently granted approval in that regard. We are currently evaluating and integrating approaches on how to retrain and deploy would-be peace club managers. So we intend to make these peace clubs their primary place of assignment, and this would make their practice more sustained, evaluatable, and measurable. That way they can imbibe peace cultures in the students and make peaceful living and peaceful practices a way of life. So we intend to institutionalize our peace building approaches and infrastructures. That way it's more progressive and is more evaluatable. So you could know where you stop this year and know what to impute in the system. Already we have some of these structures functioning and more coming up. And we're very passionate about this because it will introduce peace building in the schools, at the elementary level, at the secondary, at tertiary, and even beyond. So we're glad that the Nigerian government also saw what we saw about the tendency of catching them young, and have endorsed this initiative. So going forward, we want to.
I'm gonna stop you there because it's quite interesting and we have lots of comments. Please bear with me, Mr. Pietro Zochukwu. Because I know that there are comments already that are directed to you colleagues, and we only have 13 minutes left to the end of this session, but we promised to the participants that we'll be sharing some of the presentations at your consent. So please forgive me for just cutting you short, because there are things you need to respond to, but it is coming out so well. Thank you so much, Pietro. Now, colleagues, allow me to just quickly hand over to my colleague Kasumi so that she can run through the comments, and then our panelists can respond to the comments in view of concluding at least around the next 12 minutes. Over to you, Kasumi.
Thank you very much. Because of the short remaining time, allow me to pick some of the questions directly to address to the panels and the others. So first, I would like to invite Dr. Theodoros. One person is asking, how is peace education addressed at the stage of grade 4? It's touching the level of development of the learners. Some may think it's too early to introduce the concept of peace. How is Ministry of Education in Ethiopia is addressing peace education to the level of grade 4? Dr. Tedros?
Hello.
Oh, yes.
Can I answer this question?
Yes. How is peace education addressed at the stage of grade 4? You explained how peace education is incorporated in the new curriculum, and that was the element at the level of grade 4. So what kind of elements do you include in the moral education at those grades?
Well, we start this as I mentioned earlier. First, we teach our students moral education, all contents. Already I share with that contents. Before coming to the peace education elements or contents, we teach our students child self-discipline, discipline in family, neighborhood, in the school. These are the basic for the foundation for before starting peace education, and respecting humanity, respecting other, equality, and the collaboration, teamwork, culturality. These are the basic for contents for moral education grade 1 to 3. After completing these contents, we incorporate peace education for grade 4. Starting from grade 4, they can the teachers will teach in first knowledge base, and through exercise, through teamwork and other components. The peace education contents and components will integrate in the textbook, and how teachers teach the students already the peace elements, contents incorporated in the teacher's guide also. So these are the main ideas of the peace education elements incorporated in the grade 4 and the grade 6 also, and the grade 8 also. These are the elements. The basic foundation is building a moral values to the students as well as the community and the parents. We cannot build peace education in school also. We have to build the peace education, moral education in the school environment, in society, around in community. So these are the ideas incorporated into the teachers. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for highlighting the perspective of peace education as really understanding themselves and also the surrounding environment. Now, I'd like to invite Dr. Tendai for the next question. I would like to combine two questions. One question is asking, are the teachers only involved in peace education programs as potential educators, or are they also the target of education as well? So the teachers are also learning from it, or what are the positioning of teachers in peace education program? And another question to add on that, how about the school leaders? School leaders, are they involved in the training? Are they particularly be empowered, especially during the crisis situation, crisis management? Dr. Tendai?
Sorry, Dr. Tendai, we can't hear you very well. I think something is wrong with your microphone.
I think he just dropped off.
We
That
can move to
maybe-
the next speaker.
Yeah. Okay, so next I'd like to, this one is a little bit a challenging question to Dr. Mary. One person is saying violence has become the order of the day in a number of communities across sub-Saharan Africa. Would we argue here that this is as a result of failure on the part of education system in sharing correct knowledge to our learners, or is education really helping us in such context? Could we hear your thought, Dr. Mary?
Yeah, thank you so much. I agree with you. But again, here we are saying, yes, it is true that violence in the sub-Saharan country has been there. And the whole thing about, is it about the education that we are offering, or is it, it's not able to meet that, or is it that we can offer education for that? Sometimes I always say, you cannot separate education so much, or the schools or the institution, learning institutions from the community. And sometimes is that what they see happening in the community, they are also likely to copy it in schools. But again, we are saying the fact that now we are coming in and we are talking about, yes, education is the key. Education is a tool that actually can be used to change the minds of people. And this is what we are saying, that actually if we are able to use the transformative education to change people, then actually once you're changed from the foundation, you can see that it is very impactful. And I believe that actually UNESCO was quite informed when they talked about that since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed. So I believe that through education, we can be able to achieve a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. School is not the only place to do the education, but it's the continuum of learning from school to the community, and it's like endless. You keep learning. Okay, Dr. Tendai, are you back?
Yes. Thank you for your patience. I was saying in the school curriculum, peace and conflict management are cross-cutting themes within the curriculum, which means ideas around peace can be taught in any subject across the curriculum, and they can be included in many ways across the curriculum. Teacher educators was that it is in teacher education that both pre-service and in-service teaching and training of, training of teachers is undertaken. So we thought it was a faster way of reaching out to teachers who then operationalize the school curriculum. But otherwise, the idea of peace is there in the school curriculum and is taught by, it's supposed to be taught by every teacher who is engaged with the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education. I'm not sure whether I missed one of the questions.
Okay, thank you. And maybe another question to Dr. Tendai, the element, the perspective of school leaders, leadership, especially in crisis setting like COVID and conflict. How has any training been given to school leaders in crisis management?
In the school leaders in particular, we had not yet engaged with them, but we engaged with, because we were focusing more on higher education. That is where most teacher education is undertaken. We did engage with leaders within those institutions, leaders in higher education at the ministerial level, and also leaders within the institutions, leaders like deans, the faculty deans, but in the school system, we had not yet engaged with school leaders per se.
Thank you very much. So last question to Mr. Petro. So given that a peace education is expectedly peculiar to individual countries, which of the methodologies or principles could be applicable, particularly to Nigeria, in view of her multi-tribal, religious, and cultural backgrounds?
Yes, and that's the uniqueness of the combination of positive peace and transformative pedagogy, because it makes it context specific. You know, like the questionnaire rightly observed, Nigeria is multi-tribal, multi-ethnic, multilingual, multi-religious. You know, but when you engage everyone in their own facets of community base, they come up with solutions to their own problem, identifying the positive piece that requires strengthening in their community. You know, you saw where primary school people were engaged, where secondary schools were engaged, where tertiary institutions were engaged, and even where people in correctional centers were engaged. So irrespective of your peculiar reality, you know, you could identify your challenges, you could identify your need, you could identify the changes you want to see, and articulate solutions to interventions that will address those challenges. So the opportunities are really endless. You know, it's a cocktail of so many approaches. Many things could be accommodated within that framework, and that is the uniqueness of our intervention approach to peace building.
Thank you very much. That was a very quick round of question and answer session, but time is up. So back to you, Victoria.
Thank you so much, Kasumi. Colleagues, we really want to say it has been a wonderful session, but let me invite my colleague, Dr. Salem Asmerau, to summarize quickly before we invite our director to close. Please bear with us for the next 2 minutes or so. Over to you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you all the presenters and our participants. It was really a very insightful session, and we can see that one session is not enough to share our experiences, and we will also organize different sessions for the in the coming months, maybe in March and April, so that we can also share a lot. But just to summarize on what we have been discussing as a key points is what stands out today is the importance of curriculum reform, the integrating the peace education in the curriculum, whether it's in a standalone form or whether in a moral and citizenship education form, but we emphasize on the importance of curriculum integration. And of course, when you talk about the curriculum integration, we also emphasize on ensuring the curriculum and the pedagogy to focus more on the whole school approach so that we engage the community. So it will not be stayed in the classroom, but it will also reach to the community and engage the learners in the process. And the focus from theory to practice is something which was emphasized, especially when we deal with this kind of approach and traditional or the indigenous knowledge transfer, and the focus on the pedagogy, as Mary beautifully put it, that it's a game changer. And because it focuses more on the youth to reflect on, also to transform their mind so that attitudinal change is possible in that regard. So we focus on the practicality of the pedagogy and the support materials, the importance of support materials. Even though we have different training materials, still the need for support materials at all level of education was highly reflected, and strengthening, of course, that shared training program in relation to or aligned to the basic education curriculum revision is important, and the partnership, networking, and using the existing structure or strengthening and creating the existing structures like the Peace Club is something which all of us has emphasized, and of course partnership and reaching to the hard to reach areas, including the beating the technology challenge is something that we have been emphasizing. And thank you very much, colleagues, for the wonderful discussion we had, and over to you, Victor.
Thank you so much for that quick summary, Dr. Jerusalem. Let me hand over to Dr. Quinton Wooden to wrap it up. Thank you.
Thanks, Victoria, and thank you all for participating. We actually had about 500 people registering, and some couldn't make it today. I just want to tell you that we will send you some of the materials, the PowerPoint presentation and so on. More importantly, we are in the process of documenting what happened with that wonderful project. Thanks again to the government of Japan for the funding. There are quite a few lessons learned, so we'll have a few case studies and we'll have an overall report. And we will make sure that as soon as this is ready, we will send this to you. So thank you again for participating today, and we hope to see you again. Victoria, back to you.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Thank you, everyone, to all our esteemed presenters. We appreciate. You can turn on your camera now. We can, if you can, but otherwise, we appreciate you, and thank you for the awesome comments. If you need the presentations, you can paste your email address in the chat room, and then we'll be able to share just in case. And thanks again. Have a beautiful, beautiful day, beautiful evening for those who are in East Africa, and to our panelists, kudos. Thank you for sticking to the time. I know you had a lot to share. We really appreciate you so much. Thank you. You can see the applauding, and to the translators, thank you so much for the great work that you have done and enduring the different accents and speeds. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. Bye.